reason number 9 is outside the box. You know, we all have our own comfort level as far as how much and how comfortable we feel with interacting with other people. Some people say, I'm not going to stand up and talk in front of the group. I'm a great believer in this. I'm all in, but I just don't want to stand up in front of the group. You know, here's another thing. Don't ever underestimate the role of introverts. Extroverts are up there, and sometimes the loudest have the greatest effect on a group. That's a mistake. You know, one of the things whenever I was creating the culture of the team is one of the groups I want to look at very closely were the introverts. And you know the thing I found out is they usually had their thoughts well thought out. They usually were more committed to things. Don't underestimate the role of introverts just because the extrovert people are so out there and so dominant. I found that the best influence in a group for me many times was those introverts, but I had to pull them out. I had to make sure that I took advantage of that. So let's go back to this whole thing about outside the box. So many educators say, that's just not me, that's for somebody else. But I just want to teach my class. Leave me alone. I don't want to be part of any of this and all that kind of stuff. As simple as that. And that's a natural thing. We've all got our level of comfort. We call it the water level. You know, how low below will you go from what your natural instinct is? How much do you like interacting with other people? As simple as that. Well, I think in the area of character education, we should all challenge ourselves to go outside the box a little bit. I think that you'll be happy to do it. You know, we do Character Day and we have teachers be the family leaders. And one of the things is some of them are real reserved. I never want to be a lead an actual activity. And at the end of the day, they come up to me and say, I wish I would have led a character activity. I really got into it. It was really fun. One of the things that we challenge the students is, express your feelings. Same thing. At the end of the day, some students come to me and go, I wish I would have lowered my water level a little more and expressed my feelings. I think what keeps us from becoming character educators and really buying into this whole thing is, that's just not me. That old 60s saying, feely touchy. I'm not a feely touchy person, as simple as that. Something that happened to me that had a drastic effect, and I wish it would have happened to me sooner in my career. And it's a little bit emotional. I get emotional when I tell this story. So a situation is, I am the drug and alcohol educator for Hamilton City Schools. I have 3 years to go in retirement. I like that job. I enjoyed the challenge of the football team there. And then we had some success with the character of our football players. And that's another story for another class. But the superintendent, Mrs. Janet Baker, who I have the utmost respect for, she's the character superintendent, called me in the office and said, Jim, we got a new job for you. You are going to become the director of character education for the 9,600 students of Hamilton schools. I said, you got to be kidding me. You already know how I felt about my qualifications to affect grade school students and teachers. As simple as that. I went home and told my wife, I said, Joni, Mrs. Baker's lost her mind. And she said, I agree with you. She said, that's crazy. I know you. That's crazy. But anyway, the big thing there is I missed the first 3 words. The first 3 words weren't, will you be the director of character education? The first 3 words were, you are the director of character education. Mrs. Baker saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and I owe an eternal gratitude for that. So anyway, I go to, and I believe in my character card system. I believe in what it affects how the football program. Mrs. Baker's original idea was, let's use your character card on all 9,600 students for the Hamilton City Schools. I knew that wasn't going to work. It could be part of it, but that wasn't the key. So I'm searching for a way. What am I going to do? I've got this new job. I'm not qualified for it. As simple as that. Well, I found out about it. It was actually one of the secretaries in the school told me about a program called Challenge Day. Okay, we changed it to Character Day, and in another class I do a lot of explaining about that. But anyway, they had a training up in Toledo, Ohio called Next Step. I said, I'm going to go up there and see what this thing is all about. So I went up, and it was 4 days long, 66 educators for 4 days, 64, I'm sorry. So the first 3 days, it was great. I enjoyed it. I called Joni every night. I said, I'm having a great time, and I'm learning all these things that I'm going to do when I get back to Hamilton. I'm going to use this as the base, the cornerstone, and then we'll build from there. Well, I also knew this. Out of those 64 educators, I was probably number 64 when it comes to what you would call feely touchy. I referred to that earlier. I'm 6'4", I'm 270 pounds. They did activities where they said, okay, everybody scream and yell your frustrations out. Hey, a minute, this is me. I'm a football guy. If you got mad, you're supposed to get against each other and push and yell and scream and do all these activities. Those are pretty cool. But wait a minute. I'm a football guy. I'm from Massillon, Ohio. I'm a football guy. Just not me. So I'm going along and really getting a lot out of it. But I'm in with my body. I'm in with my mind. This is good. The fourth day starts and something happened that changed me. And here's where it gets emotional. A young man steps up in the group, and we're in a circle, and Rich and Yvonne are their names, and they're the leaders. And they said, the young man said, I'd like to sing a song. He said, I've been so inspired by these 3 days that I have created a song that I want to sing about these past 3 days. And Rich and Yvonne said, oh, that's great. Go on out and sing it. So he takes his chair. I'm saying, hey, that's cool. I don't care. Said every day, go back. Every day they start the day with a poem or a prayer or a saying of some type to get the day going. And they ask for volunteers. So I'm saying, oh, this is going to be pretty cool. I'll listen to music. Well, about 4 chairs down, a young lady gets up and she comes over and says to me, would you dance with me? I said, what? See, in reality is I'm from Massillon, Ohio. In Massillon, Ohio, when we dance, we do one thing. We do this little shoulder shake. I just showed it to you. That's called the Massillon Shuffle. And in order for me to even do that's it. That's the Massillon Shuffle. In order for me to do the Massillon Shuffle, I got to be at a wedding with my wife and have 2 or 3 beers. Simple as that. Then I'll do the Massillon Shuffle. So I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? You want me? But what are you going to say, no? So, of course, I said yes. I stood up and she said, and by the way, when the song is over, I want you to dip me so that my head touches the floor. This is really outside I don't want to do this. So we start dancing. And the whole time, I have one focus, me. I have size 15 shoes. I'm going to step on this young lady's toes. Everybody in the group is looking at me and saying, look at that big dummy. He doesn't have an ounce of rhythm. What's going on? Me, 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 me. Well, right away, this young lady puts both hands behind my back, behind my neck, just embraces me. I mean, my wife doesn't dance with me like this. And I'm like, what on earth is going on here? Get me out of this. Well, right away, she starts sobbing. She melts into me. I can feel her crying, and I go, something's going on here. And I get emotional. I mean, the hair on my skin right now and my arm is standing up because I get emotional telling this story. And the song goes on, and I keep thinking, would you stop singing? Me, 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 me. I'm embarrassed. And the guy just keeps singing and singing and singing. Well, the song comes to an end. I dip her head to the ground. I touch that, and she's bawling. And she says, thank you, Jim. I said, okay. Richard and Yvonne asked the gentleman to explain the song, which he did, and that was sort of neat. And then he said, I won't say her name, would you explain why you just asked Jim to dance? And she said something that had an effect upon me to this day. She said, I would like to tell you my personal story. I grew up with a father who abused me verbally, who abused me physically, and on a regular basis abused me sexually. That was the home that I grew up in. I have been a failure in my life. I've had 2 failed marriages. I have a horrible relationship with my children. I've never had success on a job. I've always had the excuse of my background. I never dealt with it. I never faced it. So the last 3 days have had a phenomenal effect upon me. And it's had such a strong effect upon me that I decided to face my challenges. She said, but there is one thing that got me through everything. I always dreamed that I had this wonderful, wonderful man for a father. And that on my wedding night, I would have my wedding dance and with this wonderful man, and he would dip my head to the floor, and it would be the most wonderful moment in my life. She said, I just had my wedding dance. I've decided that I'm going to change my life and face the problems I have and deal with things. I felt, number one, I felt happy for her, but I felt like you are shallow. All you cared about, and even you knew there was something really wrong going on with this young lady, but all you cared about was yourself. I didn't continue in the activity. I walked outside and I called Joni. And I said, Joni, I'm all in on this stuff. If this kind of program can have that kind of effect on people, I will do anything. And what I realized driving home from that conference was that now I was not only in physically, now I was not only in emotionally and mentally, but I was in, most importantly, emotionally with my heart. If I will now do anything I can to have that effect upon young people, if it had that effect upon that lady. You know, over the course of the next years, I took pies in the face. I rode around motorcycles with, in a gymnasium with Superman cape on. I got down on the ground and I had young people do this, that, and the other thing with me. I spent more time working on young people and what is important to them and asking them the question, what's up in your life, than doing the other things, the play drawing, the film watching, all those other things. Now I realize and I understand I'm a character educator, but it took that activity to make me realize it. I hope that someday that you'll have something like that that would make you realize and buy in totally with this. And all of a sudden you'll realize, you know what? I'm going to step outside my box a little bit. It may not be me, but I'm going to try to let it be me. And I think you'll find that box keeps expanding. And it really is you. And it really is why you got in the field of education in the first place, is to have a positive effect upon the young people that you work with. All right, reason number 10 is that you think you had to be a perfect person, a perfect role model to be a character. How can I stand up here and give students lectures and talk to them and be all in on all passion and this, that, and the other thing? If I wasn't that person myself, I wasn't a great student. I got in trouble. I took some bumps along the way. You know, I got a great answer for that. Sometimes those of us that took that journey, and I'm one of those people, that took that journey have a better relationship with students, have more success in teaching than those that had just an absolute silver spoon trip to becoming an educator. I'm not saying that they can't be great educators, but I'm not saying the rest of us can't either. You know how bad I was? When I was a freshman in college, I went away and I had a 1.4 my first semester. Football was everything to me. I was from Massillon, Ohio. I went to the University of Dayton to play football, and the consequence was 1.4. Well, I went home, and my parish is Massillon St. Joe's, and at Massillon St. Joe's, all the moms would get together after church and stand around and talk. Probably a lot of churches that way. Well, I heard my mother say this: "You can't believe how good Jim's doing in college. He got a 1.4. I'm so proud of him." We're driving home. I said, "Mom, I don't think you understand. You know, in high school, we got that A, B, C stuff. In college, they do point averages. 1.4 is really not that good. I'm not so sure you understand it, Mom." My mom's reply was classic. She said, "I totally understand it." She said, "Remember what a dummy you were in high school? A 1.4 is good for you." Serious. Well, I didn't graduate with a whole lot more than 2.0. I think it was a 2.1, to be honest. But yet I pride myself on being a character educator. I don't say that with arrogance. I say it because it's a reality. It's a pride that I have in myself. We don't have to be that perfect role model to be successful as character educators. As a matter of fact, sometimes having walked in their shoes is a huge advantage to understanding. Oh, I understand why you did that. You know what? I did the same thing myself at one time in my life. You know, they did a study of the CEOs in America. 500 CEOs in America. They found the majority of them got in a little bit of trouble in high school and college. Not trouble where they hurt other people, but more mischievous, more challenging kind of trouble. Average GPA 3.2. Wait a minute. These are people making multi-million-dollar salaries, and they weren't 4.0s. They weren't the smartest people in the class. Participation in extracurricular activities, athletics, drama, bands, clubs, 99%. You know what goes into making a successful educator? A successful character educator. We don't have to be that perfect valedictorian. We just have to be people to bring the passion to the table that can relate to our own experiences. Please don't let not being the perfect role model hold you back. Okay, don't deny your past. I just told you a story about my past. I don't deny my past. As a matter of fact, you know, when I said Joni had a surprise about Mrs. Baker naming me the director of character education, you know, in college, I was a football guy, as simple as that. My turning point in my life was when I met Joni. All of a sudden, there's pre-Joni and post-Joni. I have a whole lot of experiences to draw on when they talk about, understanding what students are going through. So there, I just gave you 10 reasons why you're swimming upstream, why it's an uphill battle, why the system in America is stacked against you. Why did I spend all that time to give you that? It's this, to realize you're not super teachers. You're not something outside yourself. So here's who I am, but when I go to work, I've got to be this superhuman being. As simple as that. If I want to be no, just the opposite. Please don't finish with this class and say, listen, there's this old guy that's really selling us on being a character educator, and if we're not a character educator, then we're a failure and we're not good educators. 100% the opposite. I hope when you finish this class you have this message. Win little battles. The system stacked up against you. The only mistake you can make is do nothing. Do what you can. Fight frustration. Realize, well, this is the system. I'm fighting it. I'm going to do the best I can at it, and I'm going to be very proud of myself for doing it. Understanding what you have to overcome, I think, is one of the most important ingredients in your role in your travels to becoming a character educator. Well, what we've talked about are challenges. Challenges don't mean that you can't overcome it at all. One thing I'm a great believer in is that the United States of America, your school district, or even you or myself, if we commit to something and really make it a priority in our lives, we can make it happen. Let me give you an example on a national level. Cigarette smoking over a certain period of time was reduced from 50% to 20% among young people. During that same time period, alcohol consumption by young people not only didn't decrease, it increased. What was the difference? Well, I was told that the cigarette lobbyists alienated Congress. I don't know what they did, but they did something to alienate Congress, and Congress went after the cigarette industry. So all the ads, all the warnings, every pack of cigarette had massive warnings on it, as simple as that. During that same period, the alcohol industry continued with a tremendous lobbying effect on Congress, and it was effective. That one factor was the difference between cigarette smoking being greatly reduced and alcohol consumption remaining level or going up a little bit among young people. How about if we apply that to schools in America? Look at all the time and effort we put into testing, and I hope that it's working. I hope test scores are going up. I think most statistics say that they are, not as much as you would think. But all the extra classes, all the training for teachers, all the emphasis, all the remediation for students to pass the test, what tremendous passion and effort is having an effect. How about, as I mentioned earlier, if we took that same amount of passion, that same amount of funds, and put it into character education? I'm sure we could have similar effects, just as simple as that. All right, whole new train of thought. I believe this. Character education works the best with the students that cause you the most problems. The students that are labeled bad kids, and as I told you before, I try to stay away from that term. I'd rather consider them students with issues. The students that are always in trouble, they're the ones that are always going to the principal's office to be reprimanded and disciplined. They just don't function well in the schools. Well, I think that you have to take the attitude that there's something that caused that student to act in that negative manner. I want to do an exercise with you. I'd like everyone to take your arms and hold them like this and look down at your arms and imagine that you are holding a 9-hour-old baby. I would expect everybody to be looking at their baby, truly imagine it, be going, oh, the baby's so cute, so wonderful. I hope nobody's going, whoa, that is one ugly baby, and that child's in trouble for the rest of their lives. I think everyone is born good. Children don't come out of the womb caring about other people. Children don't come out of the womb with built-in virtues that determine how they're going to act in certain situations. These are all learned responses. Something happens to each and every young person at a very early age that's going to affect their behavior the rest of their lives. Many times negative things happen that cause these students to act in a negative manner. Well, if that's true, and you believe that negative behavior is a learned behavior, then I think that you also have to follow with the same logic, well then positive behavior is something that can be learned. And it's something that can be learned all the students' lives. I think that if you believe that babies come out of the womb good and bad, you're going to have a long career as an educator. If you look at a student and go, well, he's just a bad kid, I don't think you're going to make it. I think that the relationship with those students is going to drag you down. I think, though, that if you take the attitude, every student behaves the way they do because of something that has happened in their lives, then I think you're going to be a successful educator. Then I think you're going to do the good things. You know, when I was in Hamilton, just like all of you, there were certain students you knew connected to you. You go in the cafeteria, they came up and said hello to you, and walked through the halls, they went out of their way to talk to you. Quite obviously, I had that relationship with my football players. But you know, in the 4 years I was in Hamilton, as time went on, I found out that I had a tremendous relationship with what the other teachers would call the bad kids. I'd go in the cafeteria, next thing I know, I'd have all these students stand around me, talk to me about the character programs and character things that we're doing, and they, quote, became my kids. And I love that. That's absolutely something I'm very proud of. But the point that I'm telling you that for is, those students that cause you the problems are dying for somebody to care about them. They're dying for somebody to ask them, why are you behaving that way? They're dying for someone to believe that that is their behavior that they're doing. That's not them.